September 11th, 2001, 8:46 a.m., New York City. A clear, sunny morning. People had eaten breakfast, sent their children to school, caught the subway, and headed to work. A normal day. Completely normal. Then a plane traveling at 750 kilometers per hour crashed into the tallest building in New York City. 18 minutes later, another plane traveling at 800 kilometers per hour crashed into the second tower. This time, the entire world watched it live because the cameras were already there. 2,977 people killed in a single day. Citizens from 78 countries. A 2-year-old girl traveling with her parents to Disneyland on Flight 175. An 85-year-old man traveling with his wife to attend his son's wedding on Flight 11. Neither of them made it home that day, and the man who planned it all was sitting in the mountains of Afghanistan, waiting to hear the news. His name was Osama Bin Laden. Today we will hear his complete story from beginning to end. Everything that happened, everything he did, and the ending the world witnessed. March 10th, 1957, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. A boy was born into a household and was named Osama bin Laden. His father was Mohammed bin Awad bin Laden, a man whose story sounds like something out of a movie. He was born into a poor family in Yemen and later moved to Saudi Arabia, where he became worth billions. How? Through the Saudi bin Laden group. In the 1930s, when Saudi Arabia was still a young nation, Mohammed bin Laden received a contract to build projects for the Saudi royal family. That contract became the foundation of his success. He worked on the mosques of Mecca and Medina. In 1964, his company renovated the dome of Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. The company eventually became the largest construction company in the Arab world. But in 1967, Mohammed bin Laden died in a plane crash at the age of 59. The pilot made a mistake during landing, and Osama's father was gone. Was one of more than 50 children. His mother remarried, and Osama became part of a stepfamily. Something continued to develop quietly within him. Interestingly, his brothers later said that while other children played, Osama accompanied his father to business meetings. He sat there, listened, and thought. This was the boy the world would later know as Osama bin Laden. In 1968, Osama joined Al Thagr Model School in Jeddah. In 1971, at just 14 years old, he was sent to Oxford, England, for an English language course. From the outside, he seemed normal. He was a fan of Arsenal Football Club and enjoyed military history. But internally, something else was developing. In 1976, he enrolled at King Abdulaziz University in Jeddah, studying economics and business administration. There, one professor stood out, Mohammed Qutb, the brother of Sayyid Qutb. Sayyid Qutb was the Egyptian scholar who wrote that jihad against the enemies of Islam was an obligation, described America as godless, materialistic and spiritually corrupt, and was executed by Egypt in 1966. Through his brother, Sayyid Qutb's ideas reached Osama. Britannica notes that Osama may have received instruction from Mohammed Qutb during his university years. This was the intellectual turning point. At 17, Osama married his cousin, Najwa Ghanem. He was set to inherit $30 million from his father. Everything seemed fine, but in 1979, something happened that would change him forever. December 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. 80,000 Soviet troops, tanks and helicopter gunships entered the country. Afghanistan was a small and poor nation. It was not an equal match. To Osama, however, this was a signal. Muslims were under attack, and he believed he should go. In Pakistan, there was a man named Abdullah Azam, a Palestinian-born Islamist activist. He encouraged Osama to provide money, train fighters, and participate in jihad. Osama agreed. He began using his inherited wealth to support Afghan fighters. In 1984, together with Abdullah Azam, he established Maktab al-Khidmat, a network designed to collect funds from across the Arab world, train volunteers, and send them to Afghanistan. By 1986, Osama had his own base in the Afghan mountains called Al-Masada, meaning the Lion's Den. In 1987, he participated in the Battle of Jaji. Strategically, the battle was small, but a young Saudi journalist named Jamal Khashoggi covered it, helping make Osama famous throughout the Arab world. In 1989, the Soviets withdrew from Afghanistan. Osama returned to Saudi Arabia as a hero. People welcomed him like a superstar. But the celebration would not last long. In 1988, while the Soviet war was nearing its end, Osama began asking a new question. What comes next? Maktab al-Khidamat was a relatively moderate network. Some people wanted it to remain that way. But Osama wanted something bigger, something global. He founded a new organization, al-Qaeda. In Arabic, the name means the base or the foundation. What was al-Qaeda's goal? To drive non-Muslim powers out of Muslim lands, remove American influence from the Middle East, destroy Israel, and wage jihad wherever Muslims were perceived to be oppressed. This was not a spontaneous decision. It was a calculated organization with structure, funding, training camps, ideology, and a mission. In 1990, Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. The United States decided to defend Kuwait and station troops in Saudi Arabia. Osama met King Fahd and argued that American troops should not be allowed into Saudi Arabia. He claimed that he and his Arab fighters could confront Iraq instead. The king refused and allowed American forces into the country. To Osama, this was a personal betrayal. He began publicly criticizing the Saudi government. He questioned how non-Muslim troops could be present in the land of Mecca and Medina. In 1991, Saudi Arabia expelled him. He moved to Sudan, where Omar al-Bashir's government provided him with a compound, training facilities, and a safe haven. Meanwhile, American intelligence monitored his activities closely. In 1994, Saudi Arabia revoked his citizenship. In 1996, Sudan expelled him under American pressure. He then returned to Afghanistan, where the Taliban had come to power. He became a guest of Mullah Omar, and from there he began planning actions that would affect the entire world. Al-Qaeda's attacks had begun long before 2001. In 1990, the FBI raided a house in New Jersey, linked to an Al-Qaeda associate, and reportedly found plans involving New York skyscrapers. In 1993, a truck bomb exploded beneath the North Tower of the World Trade Center, killing 6 people. The attack failed to bring down the building, but Osama took note. In 1996, Osama formally declared war against the United States. In 1998, another statement called on Muslims to kill Americans wherever they could be found. Then, on August 7, 1998, truck bombs exploded outside U.S. embassies in Nairobi, Kenya, and Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. In Nairobi, 213 people were killed. In Dar es Salaam, 85 people died. The FBI added Osama to its most wanted list. Yet many still viewed al-Qaeda as merely a regional threat. 3 years later, that misjudgment would cost 2,977 lives. In 1996, while in Tora Bora, Afghanistan, Osama met Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who proposed an idea: hijack airplanes and crash them into American buildings. At first, Osama rejected the idea as too complicated. But by 1999, Osama, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, and Mohammed Atef finalized the plan. The targets were chosen carefully. The World Trade Center as a symbol of economic power, the Pentagon as a symbol of military power, and the U.S. Capitol as a symbol of government. 19 men were selected. They needed to speak English, adapt to Western society, and most importantly, learn how to fly. One of them was Mohammed Atta, an Egyptian engineering student living in Hamburg, Germany. After becoming radicalized, he connected with al-Qaeda and eventually became the operations leader. He and his associates traveled to Afghanistan for training and later entered the United States, where they took flight lessons in Florida. The conspirators communicated using coded messages. One message stated, "The first semester commences in 3 weeks. 19 certificates for private education and 4 exams." The 19 certificates referred to the 19 hijackers. The 4 exams referred to the 4 planes. On August 29, 2001, Atta reportedly delivered another coded message: 2 sticks, a dash, and a cake with a stick down. What is it? The answer was 11/9, meaning September 11th. The date was set. At 5:45 a.m., Mohammed Atta was recorded on airport surveillance cameras in Portland, Maine. Earlier, he had been seen at a gas station and a Pizza Hut. Everything appeared normal. At 7:59 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 departed Boston for Los Angeles. At 8:15 a.m., United Airlines Flight 175 departed Boston. At 8:19 a.m., flight attendant Betty Ann Ong called authorities and reported that the aircraft had been hijacked and passengers had been stabbed. At 8:20 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77 departed from Dulles Airport. At 8:42 a.m., United Airlines Flight 93 departed Newark for San Francisco. At 8:46 a.m., Flight 11 struck the North Tower of the World Trade Center between the 93rd and 99th floors at approximately 750 kilometers per hour. Many initially believed it was an accident. At 9:03 a.m., the entire world watched live as Flight 175 struck the South Tower at roughly 800 kilometers per hour. There was no confusion now. America was under attack. At 9:37 a.m., Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon. At 9:59 a.m., the South Tower collapsed. 29 minutes later, at 10:28 a.m., the North Tower collapsed as well. One aircraft, however, never reached its target. Passengers aboard Flight 93 learned about the earlier attacks through phone calls with family members. They decided to fight back. One passenger, Todd Beamer, was heard saying, "Let's roll." The passengers stormed the cockpit. At 10:02 a.m., the aircraft crashed into a field in Pennsylvania. All 44 people on board died, but the plane never reached its intended target. At first, Osama denied responsibility. On September 16, 2001, he appeared on Al Jazeera and stated that he had not carried out the attacks. But evidence continued to emerge. In 2004, a video surfaced in which he acknowledged responsibility and stated that the 19 hijackers acted under his direction. On October 7, 2001, the United States began military operations in Afghanistan. The Taliban refused to hand him over. Kabul fell. In December, American forces came close to capturing him in the caves of Tora Bora, but he escaped toward Pakistan. A $25 million reward was offered for information leading to his capture. In 2007, it increased to $50 million. In Abbottabad, Pakistan, intelligence agencies focused on an unusual compound. It sat on a 38,000 square foot property surrounded by high concrete walls topped with barbed wire. The structure was designed for privacy and security. In 2009, the CIA identified a courier known as Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti. Surveillance eventually led investigators to the compound. By 2010, the site was under constant observation. On May 1, 2011, President Barack Obama authorized Operation Neptune Spear. Late that night, 2 Black Hawk helicopters carrying 24 Navy SEALs flew from Afghanistan into Pakistan without informing Pakistani authorities. One helicopter crash-landed inside the compound, but no SEALs were seriously injured. The team cleared the building floor by floor. Osama's son was killed. The courier was killed. Then the SEALs reached the 3rd floor. Osama was there. The mission ended with his death. Afterward, officials reported finding cash and mobile phones among his possessions. In Washington, President Obama and senior officials monitored the operation from the White House Situation Room. His body was later buried at sea within 24 hours. Osama Bin Laden died in 2011 at the age of 54. But did his death end terrorism? No. Groups inspired by similar ideologies continued to operate. In 2004, the Islamic State of Iraq emerged, and by 2014, ISIS controlled large areas of Iraq and Syria. Osama's death did not end extremist violence. One thing became clear: he was not only a man, he also represented an idea. And ideas are often harder to destroy than individuals. September 11, 2001 changed the world. Airports, borders, international law, surveillance systems, wars, and millions of lives were affected by that single day. A plan that began in 1988, an ideology that took shape in the 1970s. A person born in 1957, a boy who once sat quietly beside his father during business meetings in Saudi Arabia, listening and thinking. No one knew where those thoughts would eventually lead. History reminds us that one person can change the world, for good or for bad. The difference lies in ideology, intention, and the ideas a person absorbs while growing up. What people absorb often shapes who they eventually become.